Hello and welcome to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown, and we're joined today with Rachel Moyer, a dear friend, a constituent, and a very strong advocate and hard worker in regards to AEDs, automatic external defibrillators. So if you don't know what those are, keep watching. We're going to have a lot of information for you, and I think some very helpful information to help protect the people around you to make sure that they stay safe. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us, and we work together a lot, and this issue of AEDs is very near and dear for many reasons, which I know is always very difficult and tough to talk about, but I do think it's important for people to know why and how and the importance of your involvement in this, and tell everybody your story.
Okay, I was a public school teacher, and I have 24 years of experience now. And my 15-year-old son was playing in a basketball game. He went to Notre Dame High School here in East Stroudsburg, and he was going to the first game in a $70 million school at East Stroudsburg North. And he played the first half of the game, and it was recorded live by the local TV station, walked off the court, and he gave us that look that, hey, it was pretty good first half, and we smiled at him. Probably 2 minutes later, someone came in from one of the team players came in from the locker room and said, Mr. and Mrs. Moyer, Greg needs you. And Greg had such an easygoing disposition, however he was a little mischievous. So I assumed that they need me because they need my husband and I because he put somebody in a locker or in a garbage can. And that was not the case. When we walked into the locker room, Gregory was on the floor and he was not breathing. And I ran over to him, I grabbed his head and I said, Greg, you're not breathing, why aren't you breathing? And for a split second, he opened his eyes, he looked at me, and that was it. And I did not know how to do CPR. CPR was not started for about 10 minutes. And there was not an automated external defibrillator to the school, and it took 30 minutes for the ambulance to get there. So when the ambulance came, there was a defibrillator on it. They shocked him 5 times. They got a heartbeat, but he had already been down, Rosemary, for so much time. For every minute a person is down without oxygen, it's 10 minutes less chance of survival. And if you do survive, you're going to have brain damage because you do not have any oxygen to the brain. And all these things I learned later. I did not know what an AED was. It was only at the hospital when they worked on it for so long, and a nurse said there should have been an AED there, and I said, what's an AED? Right. And that's when we learned.
I know that's so hard for you to talk about, and I, thank you for going through it again, but I think it's just important for everybody to understand. I think there's a lot of people that unfortunately still will say, what is an AED? What is that? And you've done such good work and you've done so much, and there has been more education and publicity on what they are, but here you have Greg, who's an athlete, healthy, no signs of anything, 15, right? And so you say, how does that happen? And you mentioned too, a big brand new school.
Right. And
with the geography and everything of the location, but to not have an AED in the safety arena is a big thing. I think that with the technology that it offers and how it can help patients, it's so critical. So that's some of the efforts that we have been working with at the state level that have been, I know, frustrating, and we've been trying to work to get every school in Pennsylvania to have the AEDs in them, and you've been working to work for businesses to have AEDs, churches, malls, wherever people are, that something could happen unexpectedly to have an AED there. So
I am not taking any prisoners. This time I'm out. Gregory died in the year 2000. He was 15 years old, he was 6'3", and he weighed 210 pounds. And he had 3 school physicals, a year of athletic physicals. And the numbers, 350,000 is the low estimate for how many people die each year from cardiac arrest, and it's about 1,000 people a day. And they estimate the number to be about 10,000 kids under the age of 20. A majority of them are athletes for some reason, and it's like once every 3 days that an athlete will go under, but the kids are going under and going into cardiac arrest. It functions as schools, in the classroom. There's been experiences that I've learned about, but this is where we have to make a difference. We have to make sure when we attend our kids' events, you know where the AEDs. You don't assume there's going to be one in the school, one at the football game, one at the lacrosse camp. We have to make sure this is in every public place that we go to. My car dealership, Halterman's, just bought 4.
Right, which is great to hear. Yeah.
Yes, and they
their employees, for their customers, for whoever's.
Exactly, because they had an experience where CPR made the difference between life or death for someone, and they wanted them on site, but they want people to know, yes, they do have them now at their location. Pure Day Spa, where you go for a pedicure and manicure, they have, and all these people have been trained. I've gone out and trained them in CPR and AED. Right. So we've trained about 20,000 people in CPR and AED.
And you're all over the country too. And I think for people watching, it's, you're not just here in local Monroe County, Pike County, and you're not just in Pennsylvania. You're all over the country. And I know you've passed some legislation working with a legislator out in Hawaii. And so there's all different things happening that you are working on, and you're working with that whole community. So I know it's even hard to get in touch with you sometimes because you're, where is she?
I don't even remember where I am. I'll have to look at a sign in an airport.
Well, and everybody knows you, I think, because of the education piece and how much you try to help people and try to get them for people to affordably. And they're really not that expensive. When you look at the fact of what it offers, the cost is nothing.
What cost do you put on your child's life?
That's right.
Now, when Gregory died, they were $3,300 a piece. Right. He died on a Saturday. By Monday, we had enough money in the fund that we started the night he died to buy 7 AEDs. And then legislation was passed, and Kelly Lewis was the state rep. They gave 2 AEDs to every school district in Pennsylvania, which was the first one in the country. But now we are not where we should be about requiring them. And people say, well, we don't like to have mandates. Well, in 1958, there was a fire in Chicago where 92 kids died, 3 nuns. The next year, there were smoke alarms and smoke detectors. Well, I thought that was going to happen with AED, because AEDs being all over the place when Greg died, because I started hearing from people all over Pennsylvania, all over the United States, that had lots of kids in schools. Yeah. And I thought it'll only take a short period of time. Well, we've been able to pass legislation in 35 states. They're not mandates, but in 15, they are
a hard mandate.
Yes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why there's no excuse. We don't buy a computer for your school district, and don't be a parent that says, "Oh, I'm sure they have it."
Right, and that's the thing, and that's another thing with everybody watching. Ask those questions, and we do the AED Awareness Week in Pennsylvania for that reason, to say, okay, do you know if there's an AED in the school? Do you know if there's one in your church? Do you know if there's one? Ask those questions.
Exactly.
And if not, figure out ways that, you can raise money even to get donations, to buy one for those nonprofits or the churches or whatever else it may be, to protect everyone. And the schools have the capabilities to get the AEDs for a reduced cost through the state system. So they can buy them for a reduced cost if they don't have them, but they should. And the other piece too that you always talk about is making sure that everybody knows where they are, and that they are within a 2 to 3 minute place to respond to almost
Rosemary,
any
every
location.
time I go to WISES, East Stroudsburg Savings Association, every location that they have a bank, they gave it to Weiss Marcus. So they have the AED, so the public can access them whenever WISES is open. But I'll say to the cashier, do you know where your AED is? And they'll say 99% of the time, no, I don't know where it is. And I'll say, well, do you check in every day to make sure they know you're here? Yes. I said, if you look directly at where you're clocking in, their AED is there. And so she said, well, she or he will say, well, I don't know how to use it. And I said, you don't know how to use it, but somebody here probably will.
Right.
So just be able to know where it is so you can get it.
Right. And later, a little bit later on in the show, we're actually going to show the AED and how it works and really how simple it is. So you should be trained on it if possible, but if not, it still very much gives you the directions very easily on how to use
It's
it. That
geared for a fourth grade level.
Right.
So,
Right.
You cannot mess up, and you can't shock somebody that doesn't need to be shocked.
Right.
So people are always saying, well, what if I hurt them? What if I say to them, they're dead. Whatever you do is going to be better than their situation now. And now teaching CPR, we tell people you do not have to do mouth-to-mouth anymore.
That's right.
So that was, I think, people's hesitancy.
Right.
Now they know they do the good chest compressions, and they continue them, and you don't have to be the hero that does it forever until the
Right.
AED, or hopefully it's not going to be forever. It's going to be in 1-2 minutes. That somebody else will take over. You just say, okay, I'm going to do 4 more compressions. I want you to take over, and the consistency about the compressions, making sure they're the
key.
same. You switch off.
Yeah.
And I initially thought you were supposed to stay there and do that as long as you could. Now they're saying switch off.
Well, it's interesting because the emergency services, one of the companies was in here, the ambulance companies were talking about the fact that many people didn't learn CPR because they didn't like the mouth-to-mouth piece of it. So with the new technique of going to Staying Alive, the music Staying Alive, that's kind of how they train it now based on that beat of that song. And it makes sense, but a lot more people have become trained and it's become easier, and they kind of realize you don't need the mouth-to-mouth piece of it and you just need the compression. So it is helpful in conjunction with the AED as well. But I mean, you're the expert on doing this and training people and understanding the need for it. So I think that if people are watching and they don't know what the acronym AED stands for, tell them one more time before we take a break.
Okay, automated external defibrillator. And if you do go to a Weiss Market, as when you go to Halterman's, there's going to be a sign on the door that says AED on site. I don't understand why it's a secret.
Right.
Why don't you alert people? And then if they don't know what an AED is, they see the sign and they ask,
Right.
what is it?
What is that?
Yes.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with the legislative report. If you have children but no health insurance, you may qualify for free or reduced coverage under a special state program. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. The Children's Health Insurance Program provides benefits to uninsured Pennsylvania children whose families don't qualify for medical assistance but can't afford health insurance. If you believe your family is eligible, you should apply as soon as possible. For information on income eligibility requirements and how to apply, please contact my office.
Did you know that Fort Indian Town Gap, located in Lebanon County, is home to Pennsylvania's only Veterans Memorial? C.J. Frederick of Westchester, Bucks County, submitted the winning design that now honors those men and women who have sacrificed their lives in defending this great country. Dedicated to the Commonwealth on October 7, 2001, the Veterans Memorial is surrounded by freestanding walls and houses an amphitheater, which can accommodate large crowds during an event. Strategically placed in the front of the amphitheater is a tomb that reminds visitors of those who gave their lives protecting the freedoms of this nation. The design suggests a war-damaged structure in which Frederick wanted to impress upon those visiting the horrific arena of war. Now you know.
The summer season is a time for relaxation and enjoyment, but not behind the wheel. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. Every year, hundreds of people are killed on our highways in alcohol-related accidents. Choose a designated driver before you arrive, or give a ride to a friend who has had too much to drink. When you celebrate this summer at parties or picnics, please make sure you and your friends arrive home safely. Welcome back to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown, joined with Rachel Moyer, who has been gracious enough to give us some time today to talk about AEDs, the importance of them, and all the efforts that she's doing to help our community, our state, and our country to keep people safe with cardiac events that happen, unfortunately, in emergency situations. So, Rachel, thanks again. And we're going to continue our conversation a little bit. We ended up talking about knowing what an AED stands for and understanding how they can protect people. And we were also talking a little bit about some of the great initiatives locally. We have the East Stroudsburg Little League that now has wanted to do this, volunteered to do this and have this for their teams, right? Have them available. You could talk a little bit about that. And also we were talking a little bit about our state police vehicles and that the assumption too that maybe the state police would have these in their cars, but they don't. There's only 3 that have them, and one of them, thank goodness, is Swiftwater right here in Monroe County, which you helped do to have 7 them to have 7 of them currently on their force, correct? So talk a little bit about that for a moment before we...
I think it's just another assumption that we make that all police cars have AEDs, and they don't. So there are 90 barracks, state police barracks in Pennsylvania. Only 3 of the barracks have AEDs in their cars that are on the road. So Swiftwater has 7 because of Mount Pocono Rotary that did a
volunteer efforts.
Yes, it's volunteer efforts, and people will say when I tell them about this, and they'll say, oh, I thought they all had it. No, but Stroud Regional, the local police forces are really good about having AEDs, making sure it is a machine. It's like a computer or your cell phone. You know, you do have to replace the battery probably every 4 years, then the electrodes every 2 years. And it's important to maintain them. But if you want, you do maintain your phone. I mean, it's amazing how we don't live without phones, and that's the way I want to take that to another point and say you don't live without AEDs being on site.
Right. Well, and it's, as you said before, even with the places that have the AEDs and with the employees knowing that they're there and where they're located and if anybody's trained on them. But it's terrible to say until you've had an experience or until you have needed it, or sometimes people don't pay attention to the fact of exactly what it is and why it's so important to have it. And that's why you're continuing education on and doing the show to have people know what they are and the places that they go to. Are they there? Are their children protected? In their sporting teams? And we're going to get into this a little bit because one of the pieces of legislation that you are working with me on is to try to ensure that every sporting event, if there's not an ambulance on site, as like a football game, as we talked about, that there is an AED on that premise for that sporting event. Whether or not the home team provides it and has the responsibility for it, or whether, but that every sporting event or every practice that's an athletic event,
exactly.
That there is an AED on site. And I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense. It's common sense. You don't know when the emergency is going to happen. You don't know, on a healthy person, as we talked about. So that's something that we're working on, and we hope to have, fingers crossed, some really good efforts with that, and hopefully some good results that will help protect our kids. And I personally always tell you, the fancy uniforms, all these things that we, find important. But I think I would take a step down in the fancy uniform shirt and have a nice uniform, but have an AED on site.
Exactly.
If it becomes a cost issue or something, it is far more important to have the safety issue than the fancy uniform.
What's happening now that certainly didn't happen when we started this, I talked to more parents of dead kids, and they did not know what an AED. Now they have jumped on this and tried to educate people all over the place to have whether an AED at their workplace or, as you said before, any public place that they go to. The thing that's devastating is we're still at that point where it shouldn't be, do you have an AED? Where is the AED?
Right.
And there should be a
Right.
lot of more signage
Right.
and whatnot. But it's like an unbelievable feeling when you meet someone that has been saved with an AED that you may have indirectly been involved with the placement. And that's why to lose a child is the most devastating thing, and there's no bringing back. But I can still teach CPR and AED, and I still can say, well, why don't you have an AED? But when organizations like the American Heart Association or the American Red Cross have functions at a facility that does not have AEDs, I say, why isn't that the first question you ask? Do you have an AED on site? And I think they're getting better around here because,
Right.
and restaurant owners and businesses should be aware of that because it's going to happen. They're not going to schedule a function or reserve a function at your facility unless you have an AED there.
Right. It's such a conversation that I think when we talk about it, always everything goes down to the money factor, and the other piece of the common sense of protection and safety is always a money thing, but I tend to think it's a priority thing. There's always, how you prioritize, how you spend money, or how you prioritize what you do.
But you have the booster clubs as a
That's
schools,
right, if
and
you need the additional, but I think there's
Yeah.
still priorities. Like I said, even with the uniforms or whatever it may be, it's
expected.
right. So, but that's a priority. So where you place the priority of safety, it's like we always say, if you can't get kids to school safely, then you have to get them there safely, on buses and everything else. And then once you get to school, then it's all. But if you're not being safe getting to school, you can't get them there to do the education piece. But I think that's where you look at priorities and you say, how do you spend your money that you do have? So things are tight. Everybody knows that, and everybody knows the finances. But I tend to think that sometimes is always an excuse to not be able to learn how to maybe prioritize what's important.
And
And
we
how to do
work out things, the Greg Moyer Fund works
That's
out
right,
things.
you do a lot.
So if someone says, well, we don't have the money right now, but if it's a nonprofit, we can figure out a way to work with them. If it's a church, I say have a second collection.
Right.
I mean, like
Quick, it adds up quick.
Yes, it does.
It does.
And they are less than $1,500.
Right, and that's the thing. So when they initially came out, like you said, back in 2000, and even before that, but they were over $3,300, $3,500. So they've become very much reasonable and affordable. And we have one here in the office, thanks to you.
This is
Thanks
yours
to you.
from the
That is ours,
guy-
and so since our time goes so fast, and I know you're always available for people, so if you need Rachel for training, I'm volunteering her, what she loves. But if you can call my office and we will get you connected with Rachel if your organization or if you're looking at for AEDs. I even know some people that have genetic heart issues and they would like to have one at home. And if they can do that or work that out in their ways, I mean, boy, but if you have any interest or you need some more information and training, I'm volunteering Rachel Moyer for you. So
That's good.
So that's good. So, but we're thankful enough to have one here in the office, and we actually just upgraded in our pads, which is something that is just part of the maintenance piece of it, like you would change the oil in your car, but not as often as changing the oil in your car. More just, was it every couple of years, right?
2 years.
2 years to change the pads. So we just changed the pads. But we're going to take you through before the end of the show here, just to clarify with you, again, automatic external defibrillator, AED, you should know if your kid's school has them, your grandkids' schools have them, if your church has them, if your supermarket has them, where they are and what they do. And if you're around someplace all the time, if you can get trained on it, that's great. If you're someplace that's with a lot of people, or if not, We're going to show you how very easy this is, and even if you need to use one, you're able to do it without training. And it is for 4th grade level, and it is very, very easy. So we're going to do that right now, Rachel,
Okay.
before we end the show. So I'll let
Okay.
you take the lead.
Okay, so this is the defibrillator. It has a green light that tells you everything's ready to go, and we're gonna have you open it up, pull it towards you.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're gonna turn around.
Tear open package and remove pads.
I'm going to tear open.
Yep, you're gonna
Tear
open
open
one.
package and remove pad.
So let's just say this is the chest. It shows
Place
you.
one pad on bare upper chest. Peel second pad and place on bare lower chest
should have a
as
mannequin.
shown.
We should have a mannequin, but we'll show that a little bit after.
Peel second pad
So 2
and
pads on one side, on one pad here. We peel
do
one
not
pad.
touch patient.
We peel the second
Analyzing rhythm.
pad, and then we put the second pad.
Do not touch patient. Analyzing rhythm.
Because they'll pick up your heartbeat if you're touching the patient.
Do not touch patient.
make
Shock
sure it's the
advised.
victim.
Go like this.
Charging. Stand clear. Shock will be delivered in 3, 2, 1. Shock delivered. It is now safe to touch the patient. Start CPR. Give 30 compressions.
So it's going to say press, 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 press. And that's basically it.
That's it.
So,
And the machine's doing all the work for you.
And
And
the-
I'm going to go back to this, Rachel, real quick for a second, because when I opened up this, it was 2 pads in here. And so when it says remove, it was on this one pad was on one side and one pad was on the other side. I take it off, and then it shows you where to place it on the chest. So we didn't have a mannequin here today, but you place the one pad on the one chest, on the upper chest, and then one right below the breastbone on the right side, right here.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so it shows you where to place the pads. And then that's when you don't touch the patient, and it basically tells you it is getting ready to shock the patient in 3, 2, 1, and then it shocks the patient.
The thing that I love about this machine is that when it continues saying press, 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 and a shock is needed, if the person converts on their own and they do not need to be shocked, they will not shock the person.
It
So-
can sense that.
It can sense that.
It senses
so you
what they
can't
need.
mess up.
Right.
You can't make a situation
Right.
worse. You can only make it better.
Right. And the other thing, too, to remind everybody, we now have a Good Samaritan law in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
which
that's important.
is also does very much protect someone from helping someone as far as, any sort of liability in that fashion. So it's important to help out when you can. But these are simple and these are easy. Don't be afraid of them. And like I said, time goes fast during the show, but we showed you very quickly the machine. If you have any questions about this machine, anything that you need with training, anything with AEDs, like I said, please contact my office and we will connect you with Rachel Moyer. And again, I'm State Representative
Stop
Rosemary
CPR.
Brown.
Do
Well,
not
it's telling us
touch
to stop the
patient.
show. It's telling us to
Analyzing
stop
rhythm.
the show. But again, this is Rosemary Brown. Thank you
Do
for
not
watching
touch
the Legislative
patient.
Report.
Analyzing rhythm.